सदाशिव समारंभां शंकराचार्य मध्यमां अस्मदाचार्य पर्यन्तां वंदे गुरु परंपरां। सद्गुरु चरणारविंदाभ्यां नमः। I welcome all of you to our monthly Shukla Panchami session on Atma Bodha. This is our third session. A young learner scholar, Sri Venkatraghavanji, has been explaining every verse from this text. Atma Bodha, as you may know, is Sri Shankara Bhagavad Pada's very important introductory text on Advaita. For those of you who might be joining us for the first time, our previous sessions, 2 sessions, are available in Sringeri Guru Bandhava channel for viewing. I now invite Sri Venkatraghavanji to take over.
Namaste. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Loka Shankaram. Shankarupena Machittam Pankikritamabhudyaya Kinkari Yasya Samaya Shankaracharyamashrage Prahlada Varado Devo Yo Nrisimhah Paro Harihi Nrisimhopasakam Nityam Tam Nrisimhagurum Bhaje Shri Satchidananda Shivabhinavya Nrisimha Bharatyabhidanyatindran Vidyanidhin Mantranidhin Atmanishtan Bhaje Manava Shambhurupan Sadatmadhyana Niratam Vishayebhyah Parang Mukham Naumi Shastreshu Nishnatam Chandrasekhara Bharatim Vivekinam Mahapragyam Dhairyaudaryakshamanidhim Sadabhinavapurvam Tam Vidyatirtha Gurum Bhaje Ajnanam Jannavitirtham Vidyatirtham Vivekinam Sarvesham Sukhadam Tirtham Bharati Tirthamashraye Vidya Vinaya Sampannam Vitaragam Vivekinam Vande Vedanta Tattvagyam Vidushekara Bharatim. Om. Namaste everyone. As we had seen in the last couple of sessions, we were looking at the text Atma Bodha by Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada. And the development of ideas thus far has been that Acharya had first stated the Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti, the one that Lalitji also was talking about in the previous session, being Viveka, Vairagya, Shamadhi Shatkam and Mumukshutvam in the first verse. In the second verse, Acharya had essentially talked about how it is Jnanam which is the direct and the primary means of moksha. Jnano hi anya sadhanebhyo sakshat moksheka sadhanam, he had said. And in the third verse, he had then explained why that was the case. And here he had diagnosed the problem of samsara to be down to ignorance. Ignorance of one's own true nature. Ignorance of the nature of the self. And therefore, if the problem of samsara was because of ignorance, moksha cannot be attained by any action because the nature of action is not inimical or opposite to ignorance. Knowledge and knowledge alone is opposite to ignorance, and therefore it is knowledge that can remove ignorance, and therefore it is knowledge which is the direct means. So the third verse had provided the reason as to what was as to why we had said Jnanam is the primary and direct means. And the fourth verse talked about the nature of samsara and the nature of the self. The fourth verse had said that the nature of samsara is one of limitation. And this is something that we are encountering on a daily basis. We feel that we are one tiny speck in this vast universe, moved about by forces that are larger than us, that we have very limited control over. And therefore, the sense of limitation, the sense of helplessness that pervades samsara is its true nature. And when jnanam arises, it reveals one's own nature and reveals that what we had considered to be limited was in fact not limited at all. All the problems that we had thought that we were suffering, it is not us, it is not I who is suffering those problems. Those are problems, yes, they are suffered by the body and the mind, but I am not the body or the mind. Therefore, Acharya had dropped the $1 million iva, parichinna iva ajnanat, Acharya had said in the 4th verse. And then he had said, tan nashe sati kevalaha swayam prakashate hyatma. When that ignorance had been destroyed by knowledge, the self and the self alone exists. And that is the Advaita Bhava. And that self, how does it appear? It is not as if knowledge is making the self appear. Knowledge is simply removing the cover or veil of ignorance, and the self, like a lamp which has been uncovered, shines naturally. And Acharya had said, just like when the clouds move away from the sun automatically reveals itself. Similarly, when the clouds of ignorance that pervade the self are removed by the winds of knowledge, what remains is the glorious light of the self and the self alone. And that is Advaitam, that is Kaivalyam, and therefore Acharya had used the word Kevalaha. Now at this stage, if we look at the development, we have come to this much we have done. So the goal that we all have is moksha. The problem that we have is samsara. The nature of samsara is the sense of parichinnatvam or limitation. The cause of limitation is ignorance. That ignorance can go by jnana. So the natural question that arises is, how do we get this blessed jnana? And Acharya says in the 5th verse, we will read, Ajnana kalusham jivam jnanabhyasat vinarmalam kritva jnanam swayam nashyet jalam katakarenuvat. So Acharya said, Ajnana kalusham jivam, the jiva who has been afflicted by ignorance, he gets knowledge through the process of jnana-abhyasam, or the pursuit of knowledge. And that pursuit of knowledge consists of 5 stages. The first stage is karma yoga, performance of our nitya naimittika karma as ordained in the shastras for our particular varna, for our particular ashrama. And performance of that karma not because we want to get the material benefit that arises from that karma, because Shastra also provides for karma to be performed with a material gain. In fact, all the Ganapati Homams, all the different religious activities that one normally tends to do is as a kamya karma to get a particular desired result. But Adi Shankara Bhagavatpada is hinting that we should not be performing those rituals for getting finite results, because those results will also end. And when those results end, you're back into samsara. The joy of getting the result is only short-lived. And therefore, one has to do karma yoga, that is performance of the karma not with a results-oriented mind, but with the process-oriented mind. That is, one is doing it because the Shastras have enjoined us to do this, because those Shastras are verily the command of Ishvara. We are doing it for Ishvara's blessings, to earn the blessings being the purity of the mind, the sadhana chatushtaya sampatti that we had talked about. So that is why in all our Sandhya Vandanadi karmas, we have a sankalpam, And the sankalpam determines the nature of the karma. Therefore, when we say Saha kutumbanam kshema stairya virya vijaya ayur arogya siddhirtham, that is kamya karma. When you say parameshwara prityartham, that is karma yoga. We are converting a kamya karma into a karma yoga because Ishvara knows what should be given, when it should be given. But our desire is not for what Ishvara gives. Our desire is to get Ishvara's blessings for our well-being. And that karma yoga then becomes the cause for the attainment of the purity of the mind. So that is the first step. The second step is Upasana yoga. And Upasana yoga is essentially Ishta Devata Dhyanam, Mantra Japam, etc., etc., doing a mental Upasana of the Ishta Devata. And whatever the Ishta Devata could be, it could be Shivan, it could be Ambal, it could be Mahavishnu, Ganapati, Murugan, it can be anyone. So any Ishta Devata one can have, get the appropriate mantram for that Ishta Devata, worship that Ishta Devata, meditate upon the Ishta Devata's form, meditate upon the mantram, and the result of that, and again, don't do it for getting some particular boon from that Ishta Devata, do it without desiring any outcome, and the result of that will be Chitta Ekagrata, or the one-pointedness of the mind, the focus of the mind, the integration of the mind, which is absolutely necessary when we enter into Jnana Margam or Jnana Sadhana. So that is the second step, Upasana Yoga, for the integration of the mind. The third step is Shravanam, listening to the scriptures as taught by a guru for a period of time, systematically studying the scriptures, systematically understanding what the Shastra is telling us. Because in the pursuit of knowledge, we are exposing ourselves to a pramana, the means to knowledge. So if we are studying physics, we are exposing ourselves to physics teaching from a guru. Similarly, when we want to get knowledge of the self, what we need to do is expose ourselves to Veda Pramana, because the Shastra Darpana, because right now, just like when we have to see our face, we need a mirror, because our eyes can see everything, but the eyes cannot see the eyes themselves directly. They need to have a mirror. Similarly, we are talking about the knowledge of ourselves, the I. What is this I that we are talking about? That is the topic of discussion. So about learning any object, science or other pramanas will help you, pratyaksham will help you, but to know about oneself, the subject who is seeing all the objects, that only one thing can do, and that is Shastra Pramana, the guru. And therefore, studying the Shastra Pramana under a guru for a period of time, systematically exposing that purified, integrated mind to the Shastra Pramana is necessary for self-knowledge. That's called Shravanam. And then when the Shruti says, and when we are in the pursuit of moksha, the Shruti says, you are the Brahman that you have been searching for. The automatic question that pops up is, how is that possible? I know how finite I am. I know how limited I am. If the Shruti says, I am that Brahman, how should I accept it? And therefore, to get rid of all those doubts that plague us, we have to apply the knowledge that we have got from the Shruti, to cogitate about it, to think about it, to resolve all those doubts intellectually. And getting that conviction is the outcome of Mananam. And so the fourth step is Mananam, and the fifth step is Nididhyasanam. Once we have the conviction that I am Brahman, just like I have the conviction that I am a human being right now, the mistaken conviction that I'm a human being right now, I need to have the conviction that I am Brahman. So we have to soak in that knowledge, abide in that knowledge for some time, assimilate that knowledge for some time, which leads to a transformation of the personality. And so this 5-stage process is what is known as Jnanabhyasam, what Acharya is referring to as Jnanabhyasam. This is a very long-term project. It may involve many janmas. Therefore, we should enjoy the journey without asking the question, are we there yet? So let's make the journey as pleasant as we can. And if one does Jnana Abhyasam, one will certainly get Jnanam. I am that Atma Tattvam, the Satchidananda, all the self misconceptions will go away. Just like Karna, who dropped all his misconceptions that he was a charioteer's son, that he was a Shudra. How did he get that? Kunti simply appeared in front of him and said, "You are not a charioteer's son, you are my son." And simply by those words, the entire complexes that he had, the inferiority complex that he had, all of them just vanished away in an instant. Similarly, the moment we internalize the truth, all our complexes will vanish away. The concept, the misconception that we are limited will vanish away. All that is required is the jnanam that we are the limitless Atma. All the misconceptions will go away. Anyway, now in this verse, Acharya says, when that ajnana is destroyed, ajnana kalusham jiva means the jiva who is afflicted by ajnana, when his ajnana, when the jiva has become purified because of the process of jnanabhyasam, jnanabhyasa vinirmalam kritva, when the knowledge purifies the jiva through the process of jnanabhyasam, jnanam swayam nashyet. Now, this is an important concept. It's a technical concept. It has been raised by some Dvaita philosophers. So essentially, they ask, okay, you are saying that jnana removes ignorance, and what remains is Atma and Atma alone. There is no world in reality. There is no limited jiva in reality. Advaita means not that there is only one Ishvara. If you say there's only one Ishvara, everybody will agree. The Dvaitins will agree, Vishishtadvaitins will agree. Why? Even the Judaic religions will agree that there is only one Ishvara. Advaitam does not mean that there is one Ishvara. Advaita means all that exists is Ishvara alone, nothing else. That is Advaitam. So, in this verse, so when in the previous verse it had been said, Kevalaha, that word had been said. Kevalaha in Sanskrit means it alone, the Atma alone appears, the Atma alone exists. The question he says, the Purva Paksha or the opposing philosopher asks, if that jnana has removed the ajnanam, how can you say there is no Advaitam, there's only Advaitam? Because there are two things. Ignorance may have gone away, the world's existence has been denied by that jnanam, okay, but still there are two things. There is the Atma and then there is the Atma jnanam. So there are still two things. Therefore, there is duality again. How can you talk about Advaitam when there is duality? This is the question that the Purva Pakshi is asking. To which Acharya says, no, that is not the case. Because when jnanam arises, what does it do? It removes ignorance. And when it removes ignorance, it itself gets destroyed. It itself disappears. Because that jnanam itself is a product of that ignorance itself. That is a very, very subtle message. How can knowledge be a product of ignorance? Here, when we talk about ignorance, we are not talking about the absence of knowledge. The absence of Atma Jnana is not the cause of samsara. It is some object. We do not know what exactly that object is. We cannot say it exists. We cannot say it doesn't exist. That's why Acharya in his Bhashya says, Tattva Anyatvabhyam Anirvachaniyam. It is Anirvachaniyam not in the sense that we cannot talk about it. We cannot say it exists or doesn't exist. If it exists, then it will never be destroyed. If it doesn't exist, there will be no samsara. And so there will be no requirement to study the Shastra. So it is Sadasat Vilakshanam. It is neither Sat nor Asat. That's why Acharya says, Tattva Anyatvabhyam Anirvachaniyam in his Bhashya. So anyway, so what we are saying here is that the product of everything is the ignorance is the cause of every appearance, including the appearance of the mind, including the appearance of the body, including the division of this one undivided Brahman into Ishvara, Jagat, and Jiva. That one ignorance is the cause. Okay, so the product of that ignorance is the mind. In that mind is jnana. Therefore, jnana is also a product of that ignorance only. Now, when jnana destroys the ignorance, it is destroying its own grandfather cause. It's destroying that. And when the cause is destroyed, all the effects are destroyed. Similarly, the jnana also is destroyed. That's why he says, jnanam swayam nashyet, that jnana itself is resolved. So there is no requirement after jnana that one constantly has the jnana. In the sense, jnana is an akhandakara vritti that arises in 1 second. It destroys the appearance of the entire universe. It destroys the ignorance, and then it itself destroys, because it destroys the very cause that created it. So just like if I have a pot and the pot is made of clay, there are two ways to destroy the pot. I can drop the pot on the ground, the pot will break. But I can also destroy the clay. So suppose I heat the clay or do something to the clay, it becomes something else. Then the pot itself is destroyed. So if the upadana karanam, or the material with which an effect has been made, has been destroyed, the effect also has been destroyed. So when jnana destroys the cause ignorance, it destroys itself also. And therefore he says there is no two, there is no duality at all after jnana, because all that remains is the self and the self alone. And just like all difficult topics, there is an example given for all topics. Here, the example given is the Kataka Renu example. Now, there is a particular root called the root of the clearing nut tree, called the Kataka root. And when that root is powdered and you drop it into water, it essentially agglomerizes all the impurities in the water. So all the impurities get attracted to this powder, and then it gains weight and it sinks down. The reason why you use the Kataka root in ancient times is to essentially purify the water. So if there are lots of impurities sitting on the surface of the water and you add this Kataka root powder, it's called the root of the clearing tree. I do not know what the Tamil name for it is, but if you add it, and I'll look it up and I'll tell you in the next class. If you add it into water, it will essentially absorb all the impurities, but it will not remain there. It will sink. Similarly, and so what you have on the surface is pure water, and you can use that pure water, and you can throw away the impurities. Similarly, what Acharya is saying is, just like the Kataka root removes the impurities and then sinks, similarly, jnana removes the impurity of ignorance and then sinks itself. It resolves into itself, and nothing else remains apart from the self and the self alone. So that is the meaning of this verse. Ajnana kalusham jivam jnanabhyasat vinirbalam kritva jnanam swayam nashyet jalam kataka renuvat. So this was the 5th verse of the Atmabodha. Now we will go into the 6th verse. Samsarah swapnatulyo hi ragadveshadi sankulaha swakale satyavadbhati prabodhe satyas asadbhavet. So we are seeing that moksha, the nature of moksha, is the removal of ajnana or ajnana nivritti, and the means for that is jnanam. So there are not many paths to moksha. There's only one path to moksha. Jnana is the only path. Now, so essentially, when we one of the things that we talk about when we are talking about Advaita, essentially there is there is a 3-part philosophy. It is Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya, Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. So Brahma Satyam means Brahman is the only reality. It is something which is not negatable in any period of time. Neither in the past can we say it doesn't exist, nor in the present that we can say it doesn't exist, nor in the future can we say Brahman will not exist. So as long as you say Brahma Satyam, the Dvaitavadis, Vishishtadvaitavadis, they will come to us and say, yes, we agree with you. The moment we say Jagan Mithya, they'll say that is totally unacceptable. So we are saying that the world that appears in front of us is like the appearance of the rope snake. So if you're going in a dark passage at twilight, so it is neither completely dark that you cannot see anything, nor is it bright sunshine that you can see everything. So it is that manda andakaram, or like partial darkness. You're walking down that passageway and you see something lying on the ground. Now you're not able to see what it is clearly because of the partial darkness, but you can see something exists. And what is there? It has like wound itself up in a coil on the ground. It is very long and it is dark, and we have an inbuilt fear of snakes. So we look at that object and say that is a snake, and that triggers fear in us. And that it creates a real fear from us, and then we run away from that place. Then there's another person walking down that road, and we say, no, there's a big snake there, don't go there. He says, why are you afraid? There is no snake there. It's just a rope that is lying on the ground. Let me come and show you. And he takes a light, and then he shines that light onto that. And that with the shining light, we can see it is not a snake at all. It is a rope. Similarly, in Advaita, we say we know the existence of the self. So we know it exists, but we do not know what it is. We do not know its true nature. And therefore, the ignorance of that partial ignorance, so the ignorance is not complete ignorance in the sense that we are like a piece of log of wood, which has no capacity of thought. So there is some capacity of thought that we have, but that capacity of thought does not have that bright shine which allows us to see what that nature of that self is. And therefore, in that partial knowledge, partial ignorance state, we mistake the self for the world. So the world appears to us as the world, when in reality, it is the self itself. We transact with it thinking it is real. It leads to real responses from us. It leads us to joys, sorrows, happiness, tragedy. All of those wonderful aspects of life that we consider to be real, that we think is real, is just like that fear, palpitation, sweating and running away of that individual who had perceived that snake in the dark passage. Just like ignorance of the rope had led one to see a snake where there is a rope, and that seeing that snake had caused a real fear, real palpitation, real sweating, real running away. Similarly, the ignorance of the self has created rather the appearance of this world. And that world we see and we transact with it, we consider it to be real. So there are two things that ignorance does. Ignorance hides the true nature of our own selves. And secondly, it gives rise to the appearance of the world. And finally, the third thing that ignorance does is it makes us attribute reality to that appearance. Just like we don't know there is a rope, therefore, what's the first step? The first step is the adhyasa, the projection of an unreal snake on that rope. Similarly, we do not know the self. The first thing is adhyasa of the world where the self is. And then what it happens? There's the attribution of reality to that adhyasa. We think that thing is real. And therefore, in the snake's case, it causes fear. In the case of the world, it causes us to transact with it thinking it is real. And so essentially, what Adi Shankara Bhagavad-pada is telling by this verse is that this samsara, this jagat that we are looking at, that we are considering it to be real and we are transacting with it, it is nothing different from that rope snake. It is exactly that rope snake. That glory of ignorance is that even though there is only Brahman and nothing other than Brahman, it hides Brahman, projects the world and makes you believe it is real. And therefore, what we need to resolve that is just like that helpful gentleman who shined that light of the lamp on us. We need a guru who can use the lamp of Shastra and shine it upon the world, shine it upon the self and say, this is who you are. Tat tvam asi. You do not have to go to heaven to look for Ishvara. You do not have to search for him all around the world. You are that Ishvara. You are the Ishvara himself. That is the Shastra's role, the Guru's role in pointing out that reality to you. And when that happens, all this disappears. Now, the example that we had given is the unreal rope snake, and we had drawn a parallel to that with the world. Acharya is using an even better example of swapna. Now, that's why he says samsaraha swapna tulyohi. It is equivalent to the or comparable to a dream. So just like in the dream, what do? We forget our true nature. We do not know, or when I say true nature, it means relatively true nature. So I am so and so person in the waking state. We forget that and we go to sleep. And then what happens? We dream ourselves. We are the king of some country. There is a Swapna Prapancha that's been created. A new world has been created by us, consisting of its own sun, its own solar system. It is its own kingdom, its own palaces, mountains, rivers. All of that, who's creating? We. When we are sleeping, we are creating all of that reality. And then after creating that appearance, we enter that dream as a participant. Tat srishtva tadevanupravishate. We have created that reality and we enter that reality as a participant in the dream. And for as long as we are in the dream, we consider everything else around us to be real. Our reality is who? We are the dream king. What is the world? That dream kingdom is the world. And do we consider it? Absolutely, we consider it to be absolutely real. But what is all of that? The dream king, the dream subjects, the dream mountains, the dream palaces, everything is simply me. Me, the individual in the waking state has simply created all of that as my thought. I have created that as simply thoughts in my mind. Similarly, the waking world is the creation of that self. It is ignorance which appears. So it's not, be very careful here. We are not saying that the world is a projection of the mind. No, we are not saying that. That is the Vijnanavadi Buddhist's philosophy. He says there is nothing else that is different apart from the thought about it. All that exists is thought alone. There is nothing else apart from the thought, is what the Vijnanavadi Buddhist is saying. We are not saying that. We are saying all that exists is the self alone. And because of ignorance, different things are projected. So the dream example is showing how this entire reality can have, or the multiplicity can have one underlying reality. That is the extent of the comparison of the dream example. So just like in the dream subject and the dream objects are all appearances in that reality. Similarly, in that one reality, similarly, the dream individual jiva, the waking jiva, the jiva that me or you or anybody else, we the individuals who consider ourselves to be a limited participant in this vast universe, really speaking, the true underlying aspect of both the universe and the individual subject is the underlying I, aham. The real reality behind all this is me, and not me, the small individual here, but me, my higher nature, as the Satchidananda Atma, or the consciousness. I am that consciousness in which me, the small individual, and this vast universe appear. And this is the mind-boggling reality that Advaita Vedanta wants to convey to us. It wants to say, you are not a small speck of an individual amongst thousands of billions of individual species in this world. That world is not a small speck in this huge solar system. That solar system is not a huge speck in the Milky Way. The Milky Way is not a huge speck in the universe. This is what we've been thinking. You're saying, you are not a speck of a speck of a speck of a speck. In fact, all of this is an appearance in you. Just like the entire dream world and the dream individual and the dream individuals, not just the subject, but all the objects that appear to us, other people that appear to us, all of that is the underlying reality of that is that one waking individual who has gone to sleep. Similarly, the underlying reality of the small individual, the vast universe, Ishvara, all of that is one consciousness, and that consciousness I am. That is what this is saying. So Acharya is saying samsaraha swapnatulyohi, and it is comparable to to a dream. And what is the nature of that samsara? Ragadveshadi sankulaha. It is consisting of defects such as raga being attraction, dvesha being aversion. So in this world, not realizing that all of this is me alone, what do we say? I like this, I do not like this. I like that person, I do not like that person. This thing is good, that thing is bad. We attribute various differences caused by raga and dvesha to who? Yes, ultimately, it is the same thing. As Acharya Shankara Bhagavatpada says in the Moha Mudgaram, Bhajagovindam, Tvai mai chanya traiko Vishnu, Vyartham kupyasi mai asahishnu. Why are you getting angry at me without in this spirit of intolerance? Because what is underlying you and what is underlying me is that one consciousness alone. What makes us have like some things and dislike some things is because of the defects of attraction and aversion, because we do not know that underlying all of that is the one entity alone. Therefore, we seem to, some things we do not like, some things we like. So he says ragadveshadi sankulaha. And similarly, swakale satyavad bhati. At the time of the appearance, swakale means at the time of appearance, at the time of ignorance, the samsara appears like real, satyavat bhati. It appears very real because that ignorance has transferred the reality from me, the consciousness, into the world, and therefore that world appears to be real. But when I wake up from that ignorance through jnana, prabodhe sati asad bhavet. This entire prapancha is reduced to unreality, it is reduced to mithya. As the Chandogya Upanishad says, Vacharambanam vikaro namayam. Essentially, the pot is clay and nothing but the clay. It is simply a word to denote clay. And therefore, we think that that thing is a separate object. When in reality, all that exists is clay and clay alone. Similarly, this entire universe is simply a name and a form. It is an appearance and a word to denote that appearance. In reality speaking, there is no differentiation whatsoever. All that exists is that one self and the self alone. And he gives the example, Swapna Tulyohi, it is comparable to the dream. Now, when we say, if we ask a question, is the dream real? Is the dream real? What will we say? We should ask a counter question. From whose perspective? From the perspective of the person in the dream, he will never accept that the dream is unreal. So there will, in the dream, we will see a dream god, a dream guru, dream shastra. All of them may come and say, no, this is just a dream. Wake up, uttishtata jagrata. No, but we will not wake up. We will not get up. We will not accept that that is all unreality. We will say it is real. But when we have actually woken up, then we realize it has been a dream all along. All of that was simply an appearance. I alone was there. I alone was there. I alone am there. I alone will be there. There is nothing else. And therefore, from the standpoint of the dreamer, the dream appears real. It is unreal from a higher standpoint of the waker. Similarly, from the standpoint of the waker, the world appears real. We transact with it, assuming it is real. But when we wake up to our own higher nature, we realize that all this was me and me alone and nothing but me. And therefore, Atma Tattvam or Atma or the self is all that has existed will exist, will continue to exist. Okay, I think we may have crossed our time for this session. If there is more to do, we can do one more verse. Otherwise, we'll take up the continue in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, Venkatraghavanji. You threw light on some very important shlokas of Atmabodha today. The importance, the five components necessary for Jnana Abhyasa, Nishkama Karma, Upasana with Ananya Bhakti, and Shravana, the need to go to a Guru, Manana and Nididhyasana. And like as you said last time, Acharya is so compassionate that he gives an analogy for each of the shlokas to make people with mandamati, to even ignorant ones like us, to understand with worldly examples. So it was a very enlightening lecture. Thank you so much. And with the Acharya's grace, we will all join for next month's session. And I should, we are blessed to have Srimati Kappa Krishnapriya here with us. She's Purvashrama's sister of Shri Sannidhanam. Namaste, namaskarams to you, Krishnapriya ji. Maybe I think she has left now. But anyway, it was a very good session. We will meet again. We have to learn so much. It's a long path. We've just started. Thank you so much.
Namaste.